Be a barbecue hero with delicious, ultra-low net-carb Hero Bread, buns, and tortillas. Soft and fluffy, high in fiber, and with 0 grams of sugar, up to 10 grams of protein, coming in at under 100 calories per serving. Oh, and did I mention they taste like their mouth-watering traditional versions? I mean, what's not to love? Use code AH10 for 10% off your first Hero Bread purchase at hero.co. That's AH10 for 10% off at hero.co.
This is
Make It Plain.
MIP
With Masamela Matfumo.
Mark Thompson.
Make It Plain.
Get woke.
Last week, I asked my regular Thursday guest folks if he would be interested in running for, or being appointed to the Senate, I should say, appointed to the Senate in California.
What a nightmare.
He said no. So that means we'll have him a while longer here on our weekly segment. Thursday Coast, here once again, the founder of DailyKos and of Civiqs with a Q, Markos Moulitsas. How are you, buddy?
Doing good. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm looking at my window, man. I just have to say this. You know, it just started snowing here in New York. I'm just sorry.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So, okay. So here we are with the snow. You don't have to worry about that where you are.
No snow here.
So, is the Supreme Court rejects Trump's team's request to throw out Pennsylvania? Is this thing, because they've been saying Supreme Court, and I've been a little nervous. I'm like, what do they know? What do they have with their sleeve that we don't know about? And somebody even said, remember, that's why they appointed Amy Coney Barrett. But is this it? I mean, there's nothing else. What else can there be?
It's been it for a while now, right? I mean, I've been really trying to figure out what the heck the game is here. So a couple of things. One, right, is clearly he's running again in 2024. He thinks he's running again. He might be dead. He might be in prison. Who knows, right? You know, he's so unhealthy and older. So there's a lot could happen between now and 4 years, but he thinks he's running again. So this is a way to keep people motivated. You know, he can claim he kept fighting for them. You can have that fiction. So there is a lot of this that's performative. Then the fact that they've raised over $200 million in 4 weeks? In 4 weeks, sort of shows that the grift is strong. Trump has a $400 million bill coming due in 2 years. Does anybody think that he just won't steal that from his campaign funds and the RNC if he wants to? I mean, clearly he's going to do what he wants to do. I mean, heck, his supporters may pay it. He may raise that money out of his dumbasses. You know, he might grift it. So the grift is strong. And the second he concedes, that money's cut off. So clearly there's a performative component to this. And we all know that if nothing else, Trump knows how to perform. I mean, that is his superpower. So for a while I thought, because the lawsuits weren't real lawsuits. I mean, they're laughably idiotic. And so a lot of it seemed like, okay, he's just going through the motions, because what ends up happening, they file and I've been watching right-wing media. They'll file the lawsuit. The filing will get a ton of attention. But then they ignore it when it gets thrown out a couple of days later. Mm-hmm. So if you're consuming conservative media, you think that it's just like lawsuit, you know, Jenna Ellis is releasing the Kraken. They're not really tracking the fact that they're all getting thrown out almost immediately. And in fact, I went to Breitbart this morning. I didn't even see news about the Supreme Court tossing out the case in Pennsylvania. So now they may later, who knows, right? But they're not. It's not like it's top of the fold. The initial lawsuit, top of the fold, right? Big news. If they cover the rejection at all, it's going to be sort of kind of hidden away. So I thought, okay, this is all performative, and this isn't a serious effort. He's just doing it for the grift. And whatever. It's if his people are stupid enough to send him money, that's their problem, not my problem. But the thing that gives me pause, Mark, is how he's been calling these state legislators in places like Pennsylvania, demanding that they throw out the election results and appoint electors to him. So there's part of him, and maybe all of him, that actually thinks he should be president despite the results of the election. And that part is scary. And it's even scarier that very few Republicans have called it out and said, this is undemocratic. This is despotic behavior. And America is a democratic nation. We're proud of our democracy. We're proud of peaceful transfers of power, and we're not going to abide by that. And other than Mitt Romney, how many elected Republicans who aren't retiring? So like a Pat Toomey, he's out, right? He's quitting politics. He doesn't give a crap what people think. But how many of them that need to run for re-election in 2 years or even 4 years have said this has to stop in Congress? And I don't think any of them. No. I mean, Susan Collins just got reelected. She's got 6 years. So her, did Murkowski? Maybe Murkowski. Maybe.
I don't. It doesn't stand out if she has.
So, but Mitt Romney may be the only one of anybody who actually is facing reelection within 4 years, who from the beginning was unabashedly, said. And it's ironic, Mark, because we were talking when Mitt Romney ran for president, right? And we thought he was like the dredges, and like he'd be the worst.
You were pretty hard on Mitt Romney.
And deservedly so. I'm not apologizing for it.
In fact, I think you coined the new term in our language, in the English language, asshat.
It wasn't me, but it was DailyKos. It came out of DailyKos. Okay. Right. That's right. That was Mitt Romney era, and I don't apologize for any of it. Everything we said was true, but when Mitt Romney ends up being like the reasonable wing of the Republican Party, and it's a wing of 2 people, maybe. Yeah. Well. So that's the part that's really sort of distressing, is that Republicans are willing to throw away our well-earned reputation as a Democrat, as a sort of an idealized Democratic nation, because they're so afraid of Donald Trump and his temper tantrum and his need. So again, at first I thought maybe it was performative and it was just about the grift, and that doesn't excuse it, but at least it has a certain logic to it. But now that he's been calling state legislators in places like Pennsylvania, demanding in Arizona that they overturn the will of the voter and give him the electoral votes anyway, is beyond the pale. Yeah,
they're not going to do that though, are they?
No, they're not, and they're not even allowed to. It violates state law. I mean, state law in those states very clearly. I mean, state legislatures can determine how you apportion the electors, but they passed laws detailing that process. And in all of these states, like in Pennsylvania, the law is whoever wins the most votes gets the electors. That's state law. If they wanted to change that, they would have to pass a new law. And first of all, even I don't think that they would go that far. It's easy when you're in the Senate and it doesn't matter to Donald, if you're Ted Cruz or Lindsey Graham. It's another thing if you actually have to cast that vote that would actually undermine American democracy. And this is why you've seen, the Republican governors in Arizona and Georgia, even though they're Trumpy as all heck. Mm-hmm. And in fact, they may be 2 of the 3 most Trumpy governors in all of America. The only other one is Abbott in Texas, right? DeSantis in Florida. Like 2 of the 4 most Trumpiest Republicans are saying no, there's nothing we can do, because there literally is nothing we can do. And they're not about to become the people who destroy American democracy. And so it's easy to talk a big game if you're Lindsey Graham. It's another thing if you actually have to vote to undermine that democracy. So, I mean, the governor in Pennsylvania is a Democrat anyway, right? So it would not happen in any scenario. Same thing in Michigan. Like, you'd have to pass a new law, and it's not going to happen. And they're not even trying because they know the game's up.
Yeah. And if they were going to pass one, they would have probably have done it by now. Just for clarity, true. I doubt Mitt Romney will grant you or me an audience ever in life. We
We haven't earned it.
we were pretty rough on that dude. And I can't tell him, like, and you guys call me an asshat, as we did every week. But you said something interesting, Markos. You said that the minute he concedes, the money spigot is turned off. So shall I infer from that the money that they're raising now is under the auspices of the campaign and the FEC and all that?
Yes.
That's interesting.
Yeah, but see, what they did, they've been raising money to fight, to fight the stealing of the election, right?
Right.
But from the beginning, the fine print said half of this money is going to go to general campaign expenses. Then about a week later, that number was bumped up to 75%. And I haven't looked since, but I wouldn't doubt it if it's now, we can spend the money however we want. Yeah. And you're not supposed to profit from that, right? So technically, Trump really couldn't take those hundreds of millions of dollars and use it to pay off his real estate debt. But does anybody really think that Trump is going to follow that law when he's followed zero laws? And so he pilfers his campaign, treasury, $400 million, pays off Deutsche Bank or whoever he owes that money to. We don't even know. The Russian mafia. And then what? The FEC is going to write a sternly worded letter. Who's going to sue? I don't even know who has standing to sue to say that Trump can't take that money, and the FEC can't do anything more than slap a fine, and it's 50-50 Democrats, Republicans. It's going to deadlock anyway because Republicans will cover for Trump. And so he can literally use that money for whatever the frick he wants as far as he's concerned, I'm sure. And I don't see a mechanism to hold him accountable when we couldn't even enforce his, constitutional prohibition from profiting from the office, right? I mean, the what's the clause? The name escapes me now because it was utterly emolument, because it was utterly worthless.
Yeah,
there's no way to enforce it, and so the grift is strong. That money ensures for sure that the Republican Party doesn't go anywhere. That doesn't include Donald Trump. I mean, he is the undisputed leader of that party. And so once Biden takes office, I fully expect that it's not gonna keep going as strong as it is now, where there's a fiction that Trump may still win. But I don't doubt that it's going to keep raising money. I mean, if nothing else, conservatives know how to fleece their own. They've learned to do this over years.
So literally, but if he does not concede at all,
he won't. Yeah.
But so on that, based upon not conceding, he can continue to raise money into that treasury infinitely. He can just keep going for the next 2 or 4 years.
Yeah, I mean, right? even if he concedes, he can still keep raising that money. I mean, the concession has nothing to do with the legality of having a campaign account. It just makes it easier for him to. I'm fighting for you, right? I'll never back down from those liberals. I'll never admit that their stolen elections legitimate, right? I mean, that's going to be their line. And you know what I was thinking, and I was going to write this up, and I've been too lazy because I'm tired, and it's holiday season. But the House can vote to determine who its members are. So if Democrats play the same BS anti-democratic game as Republicans are right now, Nancy Pelosi could literally say, "Devin Nunes, you're not coming in," and Jim Jordan, you're not coming back. You're a pedophile. You're allowed for the molestation of your wrestling team. And I mean, they literally could exclude these people from the U.S. House, right? If you wanted to play this BS game. And I don't want to go there because this is America and we are a democracy. But part of me kind of wishes that we'd say back off, or you know what? We're going to play this game too. Yeah. I just think it's too dangerous for American democracy to play that game. But I mean, it is absolutely infuriating this idea that all those people were elected fairly except Donald Trump. He's the only one that wasn't elected fairly. Like, come on.
And right. So before we leave the issue of the court and the challenge and everything, you mentioned Jenna Ellis or whatever her name is. So has any of your research reporting or DailyKos or Civiqs research and reporting been able to determine whether you can get, because she has COVID now, whether you can get COVID from farts? Giuliani farted on her.
I'm gonna be honest here.
Have you been able to investigate that at all?
There was literally a headline that said, "Can you get COVID from farts?" And I'm gonna admit I did not click on it. I was like, I'm done. It's a little bit too much for me. I have all these other things I'd rather read than that one, and I should have clicked it because I just should have just found the answer. But I did you click on this story? Did you read that?
No, I didn't. I have been researching. I've been trying to. I can't get an answer. I see a lot of memes. But
there's a story. If you Google, can you get COVID from farts? It was either the New York Times or the Washington Post. It was like it was a legit news organization.
Okay. So what miracle? It was a real thing. Okay.
It was a real thing, and I just could not bring myself to click.
Okay. Okay. So Democrats, some of them, including Elizabeth Warren, are saying that they will not vote to give Lloyd Austin a waiver.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree, and this has nothing to do with Austin's qualifications, individual qualifications as a general, as a military man. Clearly, he is, quite accomplished and all that. I don't like the idea of military people running the Pentagon. There's been a long tradition of civilian oversight of the Pentagon, and Donald Trump eroded that. And it's one thing for him to bust those norms. I don't even think that waivers should matter. I think if you're a career military person, you shouldn't ever get the chance to run the Pentagon. There's a lot of other agencies that they could run. Pentagon shouldn't be one of them. And I'm bothered by a couple of reasons. One is sort of that tradition of civilian oversight, and this notion that putting a military person to it's a fox guarding the hen house, right? I mean, particularly if you have to make tough decisions on how to reorient the military or deal with budget issues, it shouldn't be somebody who's in there and has their own networks and buddies and everything else. I think it just skews incentives. And second of all, I think almost every Democrat voted against the waiver for Mathis. And now we're seeing the kind of hypocrisy I've always hated from the right. I'm seeing it on the left saying like, yeah, I voted against it for Mathis. And I think it was White House. One of those guys, senators, said like, who at the time even said, I won't ever vote for a waiver for anybody. And I don't care who you put up. And now they're like, oh, well, no, things are different. Now let's come up with different, Mitch McConnell ways of justifying it. It's a total all BS. And so the non-hypocritical way for Democrats to handle this is to not vote for the waiver, because they didn't vote for the most of them did not vote for the Mathis waiver. So anybody who does vote for this waiver is a hypocrite. And in any case, really, there's no need for it. And it's not. I mean, I know Biden, by nominating a black ex-general, sort of kind of protects himself in a little bit because you can't vote against the black guy, right? But we have there are people who are not white men in the national security apparatus that are civilians that could fit that role, and I wish that's where this would end up. So I'm kind of hoping that Republicans vote against the waiver. This has to go through the House. So this is different than a typical nomination. This has to go through the House. If Republicans want to be, a-holes, they can vote against the waiver, and all you need is a couple of Democrats to join them, and boom.
Yeah.
Because that majority now, it's small.
Yeah. The tack I kind of take on it, and I hear the concerns about the waiver. I'm probably somewhat dispassionate about it, although I agree you want civilian representation. I look at it from a different lens because there have been specific demands of Biden in certain agencies when it comes to the African American community, particularly HHS and agriculture. And agriculture is a big deal. We'll get to that in a minute. He's not listening. So by saying, okay, well, I'm going to pick an African American to run the Pentagon, the first ever, yet you nominate one that is problematic. And if he does not pass, if he doesn't make it through, if the waiver isn't waived, then you can say, well, at least I did pick one, and that's kind of Clintonish triangulation politics to me, Lana Guinier.
No, I know it's a little it's icky, yeah. Right? I mean, and it's unnecessary,
right? I mean, you don't want you just say, well, you picked the black dude, and then he doesn't have a chance, and there's the controversy around it. Nobody asked for that. The specific request. I don't think there was a specific request from even the civil rights groups. We want Lloyd Austin.
Right.
We want Marcia Fudge.
Yeah, what was that? Yeah. Did he pick Vilsack? Is that who ended up in agriculture?
It is. Vilsack, who was there for 8 years, is going back. I mean, I don't understand it. I mean, if no one else is going back, and what did Vilsack do that was so great?
Nothing. And Iowa's freaking gone. Iowa's gone.
Yeah.
Gone.
Yeah. So nobody can quite make sense out of that. And frankly, it's pissed some people off. I mean, when you have Clyburn mad at Biden, that's
he is
pretty bad.
I missed that. Good.
Oh yeah. Yeah. He,
over Fudge or over
Fudge.
Yeah.
Over Fudge. So I don't know whether he thinks Austin, and I haven't heard anybody, jump up and down about Lloyd Austin either way. I mean, people are like, okay, but I've not heard a lot of passion around him. The issue was Marcia Fudge. And it was very specific in terms of agriculture. Agriculture does more than most people realize. And I'm learning more about the influence agriculture has, even when it comes to SNAP and all that kind of stuff. So,
it's so traditionally fixated on the farm side as opposed to the people receiving the food stamp side, the SNAP side, the school lunches, that side of things. And quite frankly, that's the part that impacts most people. So why wouldn't you have a secretary that understands that side of the equation and can better speak to that, as opposed to a bunch of farmers who it's mostly agribusiness.
Yeah.
If we want to play sort of just crass politics, they're all Republicans. So, you don't ignore them. You need, food supplies, but you also don't exclusively, they already have more clout, more influence in our political system than almost any other people, just because rural, white, agricultural states are overrepresented in the U.S. Senate and in the Electoral College as well. So, that to me is actually kind of infuriating. And Vilsack, hell, of all people, Vilsack. But even, I don't know the national security sort of world and how many people are there. But, you could have an Eric Holder run the Pentagon, right? There's nothing stopping. In fact, there is a certain attractiveness to having somebody who's a competent, smart person coming in without those preconceived notions and can look at the budget, can look at the organization of the Pentagon from a clear eye, as opposed to coming in with sort of preconceived notions and biases and that sort of thing. So, I would have loved somebody who can really shake up the Pentagon, because quite frankly, that budget is absolutely ridiculous and it needs reform. And if it can't happen because of Congress, administratively, you'd want somebody who can actually ruffle some feathers. And It's the famous military-industrial complex. We all get it, right? I mean, it was the bane of even Dwight Eisenhower from the very beginning.
Right. Well, just while we're sitting here, I'm literally being texted by the African American career civil servants in the Department of Agriculture, asking me, Mark, we need an email for Biden. I was like, well, I don't have his email, but we'll see who we can find on transition.
I don't have. Maybe Simone Sanders.
but we'll see who we can get. But I mean, people ain't feeling this at all.
I mean, I know it's early and the announcement was just made yesterday, I guess. I lose track of time. But can this be defeated, or is there going to be, I mean, you only need, depending on, no matter what happens in January in Georgia, you're probably going to need all you need is a couple Democrats to say, like, no, this is ridiculous, and that's that. Yeah. Or do you have any sense if Democrats are just going to defer to Biden out of respect?
Well, if Marcia Fudge accepts HUD, they'll probably drop it.
HUD is,
yeah, and what? Granted, you need somebody good at HUD. Ben Carson has shown us that more than anyone before, and he's being sued right now. A black man is being sued as Secretary of HUD for HUD discrimination. All right, for discriminating against this. That's real. The law are suing him right now, and that's not the first lawsuit. He will not enforce the 1968 Federal Housing Act. All right, but I don't know if Marcia Fudge's acceptance of the nomination is indication that the Black Caucus has let it go. Okay. But we'll just have to see. What are your thoughts about Attorney General? People are talking about Doug Jones, possibly Sally Yates. Doug Jones because of
and Garland. Merrick Garland's the other one, right? The other name.
Yeah, Merrick. That's right, Merrick Garland. Yeah.
No, Merrick Garland. I don't get it. I mean, I guess it could be an FU to the Republicans, but that's not quite particularly motivating to me as a position as important as that. Doug Jones, I think from a historical standpoint, he's solid, right? He's been fighting a good fight forever, and he did great work in Alabama. Even his 2 years as senator, he was
good.
3 years almost, yeah. I'd like to see there being some kind of reward for his service, but I'm Sally Yates all the way. I want somebody who I suspect she would come out swinging from the beginning. I mean, she's shown that she's a fighter. She definitely got screwed over by the Trump administration and has a chip on her shoulder, and I'd love to see that in action. I'd love to see her be the one to deliver karmic legal retribution to the GOP.
So what do we mean by that? Do you mean that she should pursue Trump and his family and I mean, there's going to be so much to investigate in that administration, but even the Postal Service with the Joy. I mean, he should be prosecuted for voter suppression. It was literally what he did. And people are talking, we need the Senate because we need to approve postal commissioners so we can fire him. Fire him? No! Prosecute his ass. So I'm very much a proponent of the rule of law. So have somebody in there who will aggressively investigate wrongdoing in that administration. And there was so much of it that we already know. And won't be constrained with his BS about, we got to move forward. We can't look back, blah, blah. There has to be consequences for running the most corrupt administration, probably in American history. And if there isn't, then there is, there's no reason for the next Republican administration not to do the exact same thing all over again. So they have to pursue this stuff. And I'm not saying Doug Jones won't. And he may be great, and he probably would be great. So this is not so much anti Doug Jones. I just feel I get the sense that Sally Yates would be more aggressive
in doing what needs to be done to hold people accountable for crimes against the United States.
Mm-hmm. But Markos, what about the understanding that the incoming administration never prosecutes the outgoing? Can we violate that gentleman's agreement protocol?
Oh boy, norms and traditions and heavens. Like we if there's one thing that we should do is we should respect norms and traditions when it deals with holding Trump accountable, even as he refuses to concede an election and is trying to literally stage a coup as we speak right now.
Yeah.
There has to be consequences. And you know what? If Hillary Clinton had done anything wrong, she would have been prosecuted. Let's not pretend that
Right.
that the only reason that Jeff Sessions and Barr did not prosecute Hillary was because of some norm and tradition. I mean, they looked.
Yeah.
And Republicans had 8 billion freaking hearings, and they couldn't find a single law. They couldn't even come close. They couldn't even pretend to find a law that she had violated.
Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
So, meanwhile, DeJoy literally broke voting machines to try to keep people from voting. And the only reason it didn't work is because they were stupid enough to announce their plan beforehand.
Yeah. Georgia, what are your thoughts? So I think we're up to over 1 million now absentee ballot requests.
Yeah.
And I know you've been saying we should prepare for Republicans to turn out, but it seems to me the mixed message that the Republican base is getting, this is a sham, this is rigged, Georgia's no good, the governor, secretary of state are no good, why vote? I mean, it's kind of a mixed message. It's hard to tell people that your votes are not going to be counted, they're going to be thrown out, and then at the same time tell people to go vote. I mean, so...
it's a bit of a conundrum for sure. And the side that wins is going to be the side that suffers the least amount of drop off from the general election. Mm-hmm. And so let's say Linwood, right, one of the crazy Trump lawyers filing, those crazy lawsuits. He said at a rally that people shouldn't vote. They shouldn't reward Loeffler and Perdue because they're not fighting for Trump. Of course, they're doing everything Trump asked them to do, right? But it's never going to be good enough for that crowd. Even if he turns off 1% of Republicans, that gets us 1% closer to victory, right? And I'm fully expecting. I mean, we may get a pleasant surprise. Maybe the hidden deplorables don't turn out, and this is the people that have only turned out for Donald Trump in 2016, 2020. They didn't turn out in 17, 18, or 19 when Democrats won governorships in places like Kentucky and Louisiana, right? So, will these hidden deplorables turn out? I hope not. I'm assuming they will, but maybe they don't, and maybe it's actually not that close. But we definitely can't assume that. So every point that they suppress, and for sure they're suppressing their own votes, it gets us that much closer. And Mark, I was just seeing, we were looking at those stats that 70,000 people who didn't vote in November have requested ballots, and those are disproportionately people of color, disproportionately young people, because I'm sure a chunk of them, there's about 25,000 Georgians who will turn 18 in this 2-month period between the general election and the runoff election, right? So, and there's groups that are working really hard to turn those people out and get them activated. So the numbers look good, sort of, in the abstract. We don't have anything to compare it to. That's the problem. This has never happened before. This amount of early vote, this amount of interest and attention, and, they're going to spend $500 million in the state in these 2 months. So this is unprecedented territory, and we don't know if this is, better than the general or not as good as the general. But so far, I don't see anything that gives rise of alarm. I think our people are pretty engaged. And like I said, there's going to be a drop-off. But, for example, there's 60,000 people that voted for Joe Biden and David Perdue. Are these people going to turn out again? I mean, they were motivated to turn out to vote against Donald Trump, and maybe they were Republicans, but they're like, Trump is just too much. Are they going to come out and just turn out for David Perdue? I don't know. a Biden Purdue voter? Who knows? Maybe, maybe not. So there's all these questions, right? And we're not going to be able to answer them until after the election. All I can say is that there is a very strong case to be made that we are in better shape than they are, but there's nothing conclusive. And for sure, even in my sort of best case scenario, it's going to be a close election. So we got to fight for every single vote.
I'm looking at the numbers. And by the way, we know they're closing early voting locations. There aren't as many open as there were for November. So that's another trick. So folks, don't think just because Secretary of State and the governor are certifying the election results that Biden won.
They have no choice. Yeah.
Yeah. He beat Trump 3 times. Okay. 3 different counts. They still are voter suppressors. All right. They're still going to do what they do. So let's not be naive about that in any way, shape, or form. I'm looking at the numbers. Over half of the applications to vote early have come from women. Over half have come from whites. So do we have any idea which way white women went in November? And I shouldn't put you on the spot. I doubt you keep that math on top of your head. But
no, I don't have. And remember, exit polling is going to be adjusted over over time. So it's actually still not even the most precise data. What we know is that white women in the suburbs definitely went our way. We know this is what's good is that the early vote requests are heavily Democratic. They were remember Republicans voted day of. That was the pattern. Democrats voted early. I mean, it was like in Georgia, and I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but it was like 80-20. It was it was that kind of shift. So we are running. Like you said, about 1 million people have requested ballots. It was about 1.2 million at this point in November election. So it's running slightly behind the same point back in October.
Gotcha.
There's going to be drop off. I mean, there's going to be drop off. We know there's going to be drop off. That kind of drop off, if we're down 200,000 votes, that's actually not bad. I think that's definitely not a bad place to be. But a lot of those people may vote day of.
Yeah.
They may be shifting. Maybe they don't trust the early vote because of all the shenanigans, right? There's also a possibility that more Republicans are shifting to early vote. We don't know because they didn't in October and they lost Georgia. So if I'm a Republican Party in Georgia, I'm actually starting to push early vote. No matter what Trump says, right? I'm gonna push that. And so you see, there's so many different factors, and in that early vote data, it doesn't tell us party affiliation. Like that would be really helpful, but it doesn't tell us party affiliation. So, but we know the youth vote's doing pretty well. We know the black vote is not vote request for ballots. I mean, we gotta be the requests for ballots are looking. We're not seeing a drop off. So there is a lot of to be excited about. And I'm still going to assume when you look at that white women requesting early, I'm going to assume that they're Democrats just because that has been the pattern this entire cycle. And there's no reason for those white Democrats, women in Atlanta and in Savannah and in the suburbs. I don't see why they would suddenly not vote by mail when it's so convenient and easy. Yeah. So, so that's probably good news. I mean, and the other thing, Mark, you know this, right? Because this is the Republican playbook. Is if you're a rural voter, you don't have to worry about long lines. There's plenty of voting machines for you, right? It's in the cities where they try to screw you by limiting the number of voting machines and making you wait in line 8 hours and whatnot. So again, if you're a white Republican sitting out there in farm country, I mean, I think you're good. You don't need to worry about vote by mail. You can just walk up on election day and vote if you're going to vote. So nothing. I see no alarm bells, but I also say I don't see anything that says like this is a grand slam. We're going to win this sucker. It looks pretty. It looks I'm hopefully optimistic. It looks pretty good, but it's going to be close. I'm assuming it's going to be close. The polling says it's going to be close. In fact, there was a poll that had Warnock up 5, and I'm like, nope, Warnock's not going to win by 5. I mean, I guess maybe he'll win by 5. I'd really be shocked if he won by 5. It's going to be close.
What did you think of the debate between Warnock and Loeffler last week, the other night? What did you think about that?
Loeffler at least showed up. I mean, David Perdue didn't even bother showing up. I'm really excited about that Democratic ticket. I think that's it's a very complimentary ticket. It's incredibly helpful having a black candidate, in the runoff, and Ossoff, is not only sort of a viral candidate, right, incredibly dynamic, but he's young too, and I think he appeals to younger voters in a way that we have a hard time appealing to because most of our candidates seem to be geriatric. I mean, Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders, and I love Warren, but we weren't exactly a paragon of like youth and vigor, maybe vigor, not youth. And so having Ossoff, somebody who appeals to younger voters, and I've been talking to people who work on youth registration and outreach in Georgia, and actually one of the groups was a group focused on the Asian American community, and they've been really working on young Asians. And she was telling me, I thought maybe Warnock's he's my guy, right? Like I'm from day one. We were talking about Warnock before anybody thought Georgia was competitive, right? I mean, Warnock has been the idea of him being the conscience of the Senate just like incredibly excites me. I thought maybe Warnock's the guy who's getting everybody excited, and with these with these young voters, but nope, it's Ossoff. Like the young white guy is the guy who really is getting, and talking to another group that's working on registering those newly 18-year-olds. They weren't 18 in November; they're 18. They will be 18 by the January runoff election. Predominantly Black, predominantly Latino, because young that's where the growth is in this country. Again, it was Ossoff. It wasn't Warnock. Generationally, there's a divide there. Ossoff was the guy that they were excited about, and so I think it's a good. It's a sort of really good combination. The only thing I wish is there was like a third person in the runoff that was a black woman. Then it'd be like it'd be perfect, right? We'd have it all. But it's a good runoff ticket, and in the end, I think about $500 million is literally going to be spent on TV. If you're in Georgia right now, I'm sure every single ad is Warnock. It's the 4 candidates. It has to be. I can't imagine what else would sort of sneak in. But nobody's being convinced. Those ads, it's all really just a waste of money. And even the debates, no minds are being changed in the debates. This is really a core-based turnout election, and it's the party that works the hardest to turn out its voters. So I'm going to do a pitch for DailyKos. Has partnered with groups on the ground in Georgia, and it's dailykos.com/GOTV. Get out the vote, GOTV. dailykos.com/GOTV. And there you can volunteer for the Warnock campaign, for the Ossoff campaign, for the Georgia Democratic Party, for Stacey Abrams' Fair Fight, for different groups that are on the ground targeting the Asian community, the Latino community. So we've sort of we're not doing the work itself. We're saying here's the great organizations in Georgia. Like pick one. Some of them allow for texts, get out the vote. Some of them, phone calls. You can write postcards. Although that cutoff may be this week. To get the postcards in, to have an impact because holiday mail service and whatnot, and people are going to be voting early anyway. So there's different ways you can be involved in Georgia, and so I urge everybody to just pick one because this is who's going to win. The party that wins control of the Senate is going to be the party that did the best GOTV, the most aggressive, energetic GOTV, and we can all be part of that.
Yeah.
dailykos.com/GOTV. That sounds for Get Out the Vote.
Yep. See it. I'm looking at it right now. That's great. Good. One-stop shop, y'all, to help Georgia. We can't just be spectators in this. We can help. Everybody's got a little time. Ain't doing nothing. we all sitting at home, can't go nowhere. All right. But so, we can help. And that's a great idea. Please, ma'am, please, sir, get involved in that. And in honor of Kelly Loeffler, who really only said the same thing over and over again, radical leftists. I want to thank radical leftist Markos, who's been my radical leftist guest for years, every Thursday for radical leftist.
You got these Bernie people, these DSA people going, radical leftist Markos.
Right. Right. That's going to open up a whole nother can of worms. No, he's not. They won't even get the joke. They'll light me up. What do you mean he's radical leftist? He's not a radical. You're right about that. That's a good point. Final Thursday. Before I forget, some of the latest Civiqs numbers, I had this headline up, are showing that people trust Biden more. Majority of Americans say Biden will handle pandemic better than Trump. That's a latest Civiqs poll too. Wow. So that's good. That's good to know. And it expected. Correct. I mean, that's what, yeah. Of course people would think that, right? Yeah.
I actually think even Republicans believe that. Not majority of them, but it's pretty obvious to anybody who is honest that for example, we don't know what the distribution for the vaccine plan is because there is no plan, right? Trump just said the military will do it, and the generals, the Joint Chiefs, were looking at each other like, "Wait, what?"
Right.
Like, first of all, that's not our job. Second of all, apparently nobody had told them, so they weren't planning for it, and so there was this fear that they were going to be set up as scapegoats for any problems with distributing the vaccine, right? So the Biden transition team is trying to figure out, well, what's the plan? And the Trump people won't tell them because there is no plan. It's clear that the challenge is going to be an incredible challenge. I'm just so glad that it's going to be, a bunch of people who actually are competent and are science-based and actually want to save lives, something that still to this day we can't say about Trump as we're about 3,000 dead a day, 9/11 every day, and apparently they don't care. They don't care. I don't get it.
He says Germany is doing worse than we are. That's what he's tweeting. I guess he can't count. We also have the news that Operation Warp Speed had an opportunity to buy even more doses from Pfizer before anyone else didn't turn it down. So when you make those kind of decisions, you don't give a damn about people's lives, and you want them to die. You don't want people to live.
And Republicans are still defending it. Marco Rubio was saying, no, that was a smart decision because you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket. You don't have to put all your eggs in one basket. Get 100 million more doses and then get 100 more million from the other guys as well. And any new company that comes in. And if you have too much vaccine, that's okay. There's plenty of world to sell it to.
Yeah, we don't want to make sure we don't have too much.
Yeah, vaccine. God forbid we're fully saturated with vaccines and we can get everybody vaccinated quicker.
Because we don't want everybody to get well, really.
My God. That party, it just needs to burn to the ground. It needs to rot. And the best hope we have of that is that these hidden deplorables just don't turn out in 2022. And then we win back. House is going to be tough because they're going to redistrict it. We lost that battle this year, and that's going to kill us. On the plus side, the suburbs are still the swing territory. They're trending in our direction. So it's going to be hard for them to draw maps that are as gerrymandered as they were before. Because before, remember, the Democratic centers were urban centers, right? So if you're in Texas, you can easily draw the 10 districts, with Austin right in the middle. And so you would dilute that Democratic strength in Austin. You did the same thing in Houston, same thing in Dallas. When the suburbs around are blue, that gets harder. And when the exurbs are becoming pinkish, that becomes also a little challenging. There's a thing called a dummy mander. I don't know if you've ever heard of the dummy mander.
Dummy mander, no.
The dummy mander is when you try to maximize the number of seats in that you draw. by making some of those so if you're a Republican, you draw a lot of like 55-45 districts, 55-45, but you're assuming that trends won't change. So what happened, the reason Democrats won big is because there's so much dummy mandering happening in the country. Texas was a big case of that when the suburbs flipped, some of those 55-45 Republican seats suddenly became Democratic ones. You saw this in Atlanta area too. Lucy McBath, now holds a seat. That was a dummy mander.
Right.
So there is a chance if you're starting to use the exurbs as your sort of base, because rural areas are empty, right? So you need massive Republicans. So the exurbs right now are sort of that massive conservative vote, but it's turning pinkish. Even the exurbs, because people are being priced out of the suburbs now, and they're definitely priced out of the urban areas, so they keep getting pushed out, right? And service workers get pushed out, and service workers are predominantly low wage, people of color, and education becomes another factor, right? So as those areas become less, they're going to be Republican, but if they become less Republican, that you have a chance if you're drawing a lot of 55-45 districts using those exurbs. Those can actually flip, even if you just have a little bit of a change in those regions. Wow. So it's the map making. It's going to be a little tougher, but they're still going to get to draw most of the maps, and so it's going to be tough for us to win to keep the House in 2022. And then the Senate, though, Mark. Oh my God, the Senate! It is literally a replay of this year. Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Florida, North Carolina. We're going to have a Georgia. Warnock is the special election. So if one of the two, I think it's Warnock, it's going to have to run again if he wins. At least Arizona is not, but it is every battleground state all over again. And we have a chance to win and pick up some serious seats. It's going to be so hard. And then you have the first midterm of a president, you always lose seats. I think things are different.
Do we have to accept that? No,
of course not. Of course not. I think things are different, but it's going to be an incredible fight. And Mark, we really, all the hundreds of millions of dollars that Democratic campaigns wasted on TV ads, we as a movement, and I know DailyKos, we're really sort of shifting into this. We need to invest in organizations doing the ground, like Stacey Abrams' Fair Fight. That's the groups we need to fund. Biden did not win Georgia because of a TV ad or $1 million. And in fact, Georgia is the only battleground state where Trump spent more on TV than Biden. Because TV ads are useless. And why? Because Stacey Abrams is a powerhouse. And she inspired people to donate to her. That's the model. We need that in South Carolina. We need that in North Carolina. We need that in Mississippi. Texas, we have it. Beto's been working on that. So Texas, I feel, is covered. We need it in Arizona. And Arizona, there's been a lot of disparate organization. We need something that's more sort of centralized hub of that. But a couple of weeks ago, we talked to, in my YouTube show, DailyKos is the Brief, we talked to a Navajo Nation organizer in Arizona. Right. And if you look at the map, the map of where the Biden vote is and where the Trump vote is, and you overlay that with Indian country in Arizona, it is 1-to-1. It is literally the same map. It was the American Indian community in Arizona that delivered Arizona. Now, of course, we made gains in the suburbs, white suburban women, all that stuff is real. Latinos voted more right, but Navajo Nation and other Indian groups delivered that victory for Joe Biden. They didn't get a dime from the Democratic Party. They didn't get a dime from the Biden campaign. They didn't get a dime for anybody. You know where they got funded? DailyKos. DailyKos sent them $300,000, and which is a pittance when you're talking about the billions of dollars spent. And so we sent them $300,000. Then I think they raised another $75,000 from Crooked Media. They did a fundraiser for them. They raised another $75,000 from a local Indivisible chapter in San Francisco. They used that to be able to get out the vote and hire 30 organizers. That all they did is get out the vote. That's money that actually legitimately translates to votes.
Yeah.
And not just that one time, but you build that habit of voting. People are going to vote. So I really want to see us as a movement really focused. And I wish like Obama would work on that, or Michelle Obama. Get away from just donating money for TV ads that really don't do anything. I mean, I know some people, we saw this great ad on Twitter. No, nobody gives a damn. Those ads do not change people's minds. How do we get more people to vote?
Right.
And that takes on-the-ground organizing. It's the only way. And
I'm sure the TV market in Georgia is already oversaturated. If people never saw another ad, it wouldn't make a difference. That's not the people. The people who see in the TV ads now, they're where they are. You're right. We got to mobilize to get people out to vote. Markos Moulitsas with us, folks. DailyKos. Check out DailyKos.com every day. /GOTV. That's right. And /GOTV. So you can get involved, ladies and gentlemen, in what's going on down in Georgia and be helpful, not just be spectators. Please, ma'am. Please, sir. Thank you, Markos.
Thank you. Please be safe. Wear your mask. Socially distance.
Wear your mask, folks.
Let's all stay alive.
and vote your ass off if you're in Georgia. Do that too. Thank you.
Thanks for getting woke and listening to Make It Plain. Please remember to listen, like, subscribe, and wherever you get your podcasts, please give the show a 5-star rating. And please do spread the word. Let's all continue to pray for each other during this pandemic and this police-demic. If all hearts and minds are clear, it has been made plain.